Desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up by your own energies, which are under the control of your secondary energy called Yogamaya. Just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this verse, two important words nullify the impersonalist theory that everything is God. Here, Kardama says, O personality of Godhead, you are alone, but you have various energies. The example of the spider is very significant also. The spider is an individual living entity, and by its energy, it creates a cobweb and plays on it. And whenever it likes, it winds up the cobweb, thus ending the play. When the cobweb is manufactured by the saliva of the spider does not become impersonal. Similarly, the creation and manifestation of the material or spiritual energy does not render the creator impersonal. Here, the very prayer suggests that God is sentient, meaning he has senses, and can hear the prayers and fulfill the desires of the devotee. Therefore, he is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, the form of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So again, the translation of the verse, my dear Lord, you alone create the universes, O personality of Godhead. Desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up by your own energies, which are under the control of your second energy called Yogamaya, just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up. Well, the reference to a call spider is very important. What does a spider do? With its own saliva, it creates a cob or a cobweb. Look that word up, cobweb. I think that's the right word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Within the purport also.
Okay, and it's made with the saliva of the spider. Then, when its work is done, it digests or sucks back into its body. It's the cobweb made up of its own spit or its own saliva. So, in the same way, using the example of the spider, it says, my dear Lord, you alone create the universe. O personality Godhead, desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up by your own energies, which are under the control of your second energy, called Yogamaya, just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up. So there it is. The example of the cobweb using its own spit or its own its own spit to make a cobweb, and then it can wind it up by sucking it up again, sucking it up, or swallowing it and then finishing it. So, in the same way, using the example of the cobweb or the spider, uh, Krishna said, it said in this verse that Krishna can create the universes alone. And desiring to create these universes, he creates them, maintains them, and again winds them up by his own energies, which are under the control of his second energy called Yoga Maya, just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up. Okay, so in the purport it says, in this verse, two important words nullify the impersonalist theory that everything is God. Here, Kardama says, O personality of Godhead, you are alone, but you have various energies. The example of the spider is very significant also. The spider is an individual living entity, and by its energy, it creates a cobweb and plays on it. And whenever it likes, it winds up the cobweb, thus ending the play. When the cobweb is manufactured by the saliva of the spider does not become impersonal. Similarly, the creation and manifestation of material or spiritual energy does not render the creator impersonal. Here, the very prayer suggests that God is sentient and can hear the prayers and fulfill the desires of the devotee. Therefore, he is Satchitananda Vigraha, the form of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. So this is a prayer. That's why it says, my dear Lord, you alone create the universes, O personality of Godhead, desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them again, and again, wind them up by your energies, which are under the control of your second energy called Yoga Maya, just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds them up. Okay, so this is Kardama Muni, I think, speaking. And it's very nice. You see how if you study nature, you can understand up to 78% who is Krishna. Why do we say 78%? Because the living entity can only understand up to about 78% who is Krishna. We can't understand everything about Krishna because he's transcendental. So by understanding ourself and nature, we can go up to 78% understanding of who Krishna is. And also about the material creation. So it's very nice here where Prabhupada says in this verse, two important words nullify the impersonalist theory that everything is God. So the aphorism is God is everything, but everything is not God. But the Mayavadis say everything is God. You see. So now I'm going to explain the difference. So in Krishna consciousness, we say that God is everything, but everything is not God. That means that everything that we see in this world is created from Krishna. But that does not in any way diminish Krishna. Although there's infinite things that he creates and energies that he expands, but he's not lost in that process. His He remains as he is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not diminished in any way. Let's put it like that. I think that's the easiest way to understand. So this is bewildering to the materialist because the whole universe, all living entities, everything is emanating from Krishna's body. But yet, he's never depleted. He's always Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Now, this is something that a human being cannot emulate. Emulate means they cannot copy it. Why? Because Krishna has infinite powers. We don't have infinite powers. We have very limited powers. Therefore, we can never say, I am God. But there are phony people that say they are God. But look, I mean, Krishna, when he was only 7 years old, he lifted Govardhan Hill. Govardhan Hill is actually a mountain, and held it with his pinky finger. Now, can any human being do that? No. But Krishna can do it. And he was only 7 years old when he did it. So we see that Krishna has infinite powers, unending powers. Everything we have is limited, but Krishna has unlimited powers. That's why he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we do not understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead with all powers, we remain an atheist. So the atheist, when there's a question of, God, they cannot accept that there's a living entity who looks like a human being and has infinite powers. Although Krishna looks like a human being, but he is not an ordinary human being. He has unlimited powers. So therefore, even people like Brahma who he tried to stop Krishna's pastimes with the cowherd boys and the cows by stealing them and hiding them. And after hiding them in a cave somewhere, he came back and saw that they were still there. And he became bewildered because he just put them in a cave. And then he saw that their bodies were transforming into Narayana forms, an infinite number of Narayana forms. And then, same time, coming back to the forms as cowherd boys and the cows. So he got bewildered. Now, how can he be bewildered? Well, he saw something that he could not understand. This is Brahma, right? Now, he's the secondary creator of the whole universe, right? So it's not possible, it's very impossible, let's say, for him to be bewildered. But he was bewildered by the infinite, unending powers of Lord Krishna. And he was bewildered. And he realized that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he couldn't stop Krishna's pastime. And then not only that, the way that all the same cowherd boys and cows that he stole, Krishna took the forms of those calves or cows and cat, you know, cattle, and he uh, expanded into them, or expanded himself. Then, uh, when Brahma was bewildered, he understood that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no way that he can be bewildered, but by Krishna's potency and unending or infinite potencies, he became bewildered. Okay, so we should never underestimate Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not an ordinary person, although he looks like that when he's in his Kumara stage, or he's a baby and like in a cradle, and then he's a very young uh, boy, but he never gets old. So he bewilders people because he has unending powers. Even as a even as a baby, he killed a huge demon. So by hearing these things, we begin to understand who God is. The Christians and the Muslims, they don't have any understanding of this at all. First of all, the Muslims don't even believe in God has a form. You can ask a Muslim, do you believe God has a form? And they'll say, well, we don't know. And the Christians, they can't believe, it's very difficult for them to believe that this little boy, uh, Krishna, is only a toddler, that he can be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these things are purposely done by Krishna to separate the non-believers from the believers. And if we, how to become a believer, we have to be taught by
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we can't hear anything.
phenomenal world, perfectly equipped as complete whole. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself, because he is the complete. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. So this is very important verse. What is it saying exactly? It keeps using the word complete, complete, complete. It means that Krishna has infinite energies and he can expand them as much as he wants, and he's never depleted. He's never minus anything. If anything, is always plus. So he can expand from his own body infinite universes, not just one universe, infinite universes. And still, he's not diminished in any way. That's why it says, the personality of God is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, in other words, anything that he expands from himself, such as this phenomenal world, meaning the whole universe and many other universes, are perfectly equipped with as complete wholes. Wholes is WHOLES, not whole, like a hole, right? That means that his expansions are complete. It's not like his first expansion of the whole universe is complete, and the second expansion of the whole universe is less complete. No, Krishna has infinite energies. And it says, the personality of God is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he's the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. That means he's never diminished, even though he's expanding infinite energies, energies in the form of universes and living entities. They're all his energies. We are also his energies, but he never gets diminished. Now, if you understand this invocation mantra of the Ishopanishad, Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. The personality of God is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations, everything that emanate from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Wholes, it's not HOLES, it's WHOLES. Right? It's not a hole, like a hole, you dig a hole. It's WHOLES, meaning something that's complete. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains a complete balance. That means that he can expand himself infinitely, not only one universe, infinite universes can come from him, and still he remains perfect and complete. He's not depleted in any way. That means that nobody else can emulate Krishna. No one else can do what Krishna does. So let's read this purport of the invocation mantra of the Ishopanishad. The complete whole, or the supreme absolute truth, is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman or of Paramatma, the Supersoul, is incomplete realization of the Absolute Complete, or Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Sat means eternity, Chit means all knowledge, Ananda means bliss, and Vigraha means in a form. So Krishna has a body, but his body is not made of blood and vessels and bones and things like that. His body is made of Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. He has the form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. We have a form of stool, urine, and bones and so forth. His body, which looks like a human body, but it's not, because he doesn't have the bones and the blood and all that. He has Sat Chit Ananda. That means eternity, which is an energy, bliss, which is an energy, and knowledge. So it's hard for people to imagine, to understand this, because we don't have a body that's made of Sat Chit Ananda. We have a body that's made of stool, urine, and pus and blood and bones. Okay. So his body looks something like a human body, but it's made of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. And it's a form. It's not an it or something ephemeral or something, that's like a ghost or anything like that. He has a real body, but the energies out are that make up the body are Sat Chit Ananda. That is eternity, bliss, and knowledge. But this is something that no one else can emulate. Nobody else has a body made up of Sat Chit Ananda. The complete whole, or now we're reading the Ishopanishad introductory or invocation. The complete whole, or the supreme absolute truth, is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman or of Paramatma, the supersoul, is incomplete realization of the absolute complete. The supreme personality of Godhead is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Realization of impersonal Brahman is realization of his Sat feature. Sat is eternity, right? Or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma realization is realization of his Sat Chit features, eternity and knowledge, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, bliss. See, this is what's missing in impersonalism. In impersonalism, there's no bliss. There's realization and different things like that. Like Sat means eternity, and there is Sat Chit, there's knowledge, but there's no Sat Chit, and there's no Ananda. But in Krishna consciousness, we can actually experience Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. It's also a form of Krishna's transcendental body, and that body is complete in eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Okay, so what's missing always is that bliss component in other living entities. Like, is there unending bliss in a spider? No. Is there unending bliss in a human body? No. There is unending bliss in the soul. But the soul is covered right now. Therefore, we don't experience that unending bliss. It's possible, however, to purify the body, and then our spiritual body appears, and then it's possible to experience unending bliss. Okay, so realization of impersonal Brahman is realization of his stat feature, or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma realization is realization of his stat and chit features, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, stat, chit, and ananda, bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects of the Absolute Truth in their completeness. Vigraha means form. Thus, the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he could not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. Now, if you understand this one point that's being made here in this paragraph, and especially the last sentence of the paragraph, the complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. Now you can defeat anybody in a discussion about who God is. So I was speaking once to this Muslim, and I said, do you believe that God has a form? Did you believe Allah has a form? He said, no. I said, oh, you just insulted Allah. He said, what do you mean I insulted Allah? You just insulted Allah because you think you have something that Allah doesn't have. He said, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. I said, do you have a body? He said, yes. Do you think Allah has a body? No. You just insulted him again. God has everything that you have, plus, not just only that, plus more than that also. But if you think he has something less than you have, you are insulting him. He got scared, he didn't want to talk to me anymore. All right. So that's why it says the complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond their experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies, all of which are as complete as he is. Now, look, when Brahma saw Krishna as a baby and then as a little toddler, he purposely took away all the cows and cowherd boys to stop his pastimes and to prove that he was basically superior to Krishna. So after he took the cowherd boys and calves and cows away and put them in some place, hiding them, and then came back, he saw they were still there. He got bewildered. Then he realized, wait a minute, how can I be bewildered? I'm Brahma. And then he realized that actually Krishna is greater than him, because no one else could ever put him in a state of bewilderment. And then he saw, and that's because he saw all the cows and calves and cowherd boys still there, where after he took them away and hid them, he comes back expecting to not see them and expecting to see that Krishna is bewildered. And instead of that, he sees that the cowherd boys and calves and cows are still there. And then he sees that they're changing their bodies into forms of Narayana, four-armed forms and then changing back into their form as cows and calves and cowherd boys, he got completely bewildered. And he didn't know what to say. He was just flummoxed. Look that word up, flummoxed. A good word. He was completely confused. Then he realized that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. He tried to trick Krishna. He tried to stop Krishna's pastime. Didn't work. What does it mean? Yes.
Bewildered or perplexed.
Yes. Flummoxed means bewildered or perplexed. And Brahma was really perplexed.
That's it. He became flummoxed and speechless.
That was Brahma, exactly. Flummoxed and speechless.
Maharaj, this pastime happened with one of the Brahmas, right? Not
How do you know it doesn't happen to any other Brahma?
when we're going through the Bhagavatam, some of these are not chronological, typically not catch with one Brahma. Because we also know that so Brahma already knows if Krishna is coming is to this material world,
Yeah.
and some Brahmas do not fall, but one of the Brahmas fall. So this is illusion because this is my understanding of the what we are.
Okay, we'll leave this as an open question.
Mm.
I don't want to say you're right. I don't want to say you're wrong.
Mm.
Let's get some more information about this. Okay. And what are we talking about? You're saying that this only happens to the Brahma with 4 arms that we know. This pastime, all the Brahmas don't experience the same thing as that one Brahma. Yeah. So let's leave that question open, and you can research it more. Okay. All right. So I'm going to continue reading this Ishopanishad invocation purport as an invocation mantra. Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachite Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations, meaning everything that comes from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. So everything that Krishna expands from his body is also perfect and complete. Whatever is produced of the complete whole, in other words, whatever is expanded from Krishna's transcendental body, is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. In other words, he is never diminished, even though infinite things, universes, not just one universe, many universes, infinite number of living entities, and so forth, it doesn't diminish him at all. That's why, if you understand this first mantra, or the invocation mantra of the Ishopanishad, you can defeat anyone, any atheist or whatever, in a discussion, because they don't have this knowledge of the completeness, absolute completeness of the Supreme Personality Godhead. That's why this important. This one verse, this invocation verse of Ishopanishad is so important. Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Adachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Just like this Muslim fellow I met, I asked him a question, I said, "Do you think God has a form?" He said, "No." I said, "You just insulted God." "What do you mean? How could I insult God?" I said, you You insulted him because you think you have something like a body that God doesn't have. So how can God have a body? I said, I see. Now you're insulting him again just by asking that question. He has everything you have and more. But if you say he has something less than you, then you're insulting him. Yes. What's your question?
Maharaj, I have used the same similar analogy to one of my our relative long time back.
Yeah.
So my relative was like, I know him from long time, and he was like in between of
Yeah.
impersonalist or like
Yeah.
following the deity.
Yeah.
Like he was just switching back and forth. So one day in conversation, I have told him the exactly same, that when I heard in your lecture
Yeah.
that you are saying God doesn't have a body and you have it, then that point got like stuck into his head, and then he started following 100% to Krishna consciousness. He's chanting and everything. He's like, now he's
Good.
not going back with this one analogy.
Haribo.
The Mayavadi argument is this Brahman has no form, but he has the ability to take a body.
Okay.
That's the argument they put. So it has full potencies to take a body. The argument, the states, initially there is no form, but it has the potency to take a form. They put it that way.
Well, that is the opposite of the truth. God has an eternal form,
Yes.
but he can expand infinite forms.
Yeah.
Not just one form, infinite forms. And but see, they're assuming he doesn't have a form, but if he wants to, he can assume a form. But actually, he always has a form. He's never minus form.
That's what they lost
Yeah.
the argument.
Yeah.
Because they mix it with the material conception, because
Yeah.
now you cannot see, you cannot prove as devotees.
Mm.
So that's why they lock the argument over there.
Well, that's what you call speculation.
Yeah, now we are going in a parallel.
Yeah. And from his form, everything else has come.
Yeah.
So if you're pretending that, well, yeah, okay, he can have a form. So how did the universe start, right? I don't know what their answer is to that.
All the potencies are there, and that's what they put.
Yeah, but that's nonsense. And that's impersonalism.
Yes.
Why? Because everything is there. How did it get there? They can't answer that question. How did it all start? Right? It all started from a person called Krishna. Okay? So they can't. It doesn't fit in their mind.
It doesn't also align with what Krishna says, right? Krishna has to give special eyes for Arjuna to see.
Yeah.
Then you could see the real form of universal form as well. With normal eyes, they can't see anything.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
they continue to stay with that logic forever. Right?
Well, we're going to help them open their eyes. Okay, so now in the purport it says in this introduction into invocation mantra, the complete whole or the supreme absolute truth is the complete personality of God. Realization of impersonal Brahman or of Paramatma, the super soul, is incomplete realization of the absolute complete. The supreme personality of Godhead is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Realization of impersonal Brahman is realization of his Sat feature, or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma realization is realization of his Sat and Chit features, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects of the Absolute Truth in their completeness. Vigraha means form. Thus, the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he could not be complete. There it is. That's the way you can defeat anybody in a discussion about God. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he could not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, it cannot be complete. So when I asked the Muslim, I said, "Do you believe God has a form?" He said, "No." I said, "You just insulted God." He said, "What do you mean I insulted God?" You know, well, yeah, because he's saying something. He thinks that he has something that God doesn't have. That's not possible. Krishna has everything we have, plus he has things that we don't have, right? So it's very easy to defeat people in nonsense people if you understand the philosophy. In other words, if you understand this first introductory mantra of the Ishopanishad, Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. You can defeat anyone in a discussion.
Essentially, the Muslim philosophy is the Mayavadi because they don't.
Yeah, but there's many other Mayavadi philosophies also. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world and many other phenomenal worlds, right, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains a complete balance. If you understand just this first introductory invocation mantra of the Upanishad, you can defeat anybody in discussion about God. So purport: the complete whole, or the supreme absolute truth, is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman or of Paramatma, the super soul, is incomplete realization of the absolute complete. The supreme personality of Godhead is Tat Chitananda Vigraha. Realization of impersonal Brahman is realization of his Sat feature, or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma realization is realization of his Sat and Chit features, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, Ananda, Ananda meaning bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects of the absolute truth in their completeness. Vigraha means form. Thus, the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he could not be complete. In other words, he couldn't be God. Right? The complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. So there's many other things that we don't even know about God, but he is complete. He has those things also. And as we keep discovering newer and newer things about Krishna, we realize that he has infinite qualities, infinite, because he's not living in 3 dimensions. He's living in the 4th dimension, where everything that is in 3 dimensions becomes infinite.
So does Christianity also put a form to the God, or that kind of also Mayavadi because they do not?
Well, let's see. The Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God. So if Jesus has a form, then the Father should have a form also.
But they don't accept form for the father, and they don't give a form to the father as well. Is that true?
Well, the Muslims don't, but the Christians, it's wishy-washy. Why don't you look it up?
If you're old,
What is it?
That
Chat. Yeah.
GPT.
GPT. Do the Christians believe what? That
God has a form.
that Jesus' Father has a form, right? We know Jesus has a form.
Yeah. Yes. Because they stop at the Jesus, they do not advance.
Well, they
to the
say
Father.
Jesus is God.
Hmm.
Not all of them, but
Some-
the ones that are tricky, they say Jesus is God. But the ones that actually follow the Bible, that Jesus is the Son of God.
One day, Maharaj, some American came on the food truck
Yeah,
in Seattle,
Yeah.
and he asked that, "What is your opinion about Jesus?"
right.
And I had repeated what you have said in your lectures.
Yeah.
That he's a devotee and he's a son of the God, so we
Yeah.
respect him
Yeah.
as a pure devotee. So he said, really? So he was shocked.
Yeah.
Like, we are so positive about Jesus.
Yes.
According to the Bible, God is a spirit and does not have a physical form, according to the Bible.
Apparently, that's the original view. There are some denominations that think otherwise. But
Well, you see how there's so many mistakes in the Bible. What?
AI overview.
AI?
It's artificial
Artificial.
intelligence.
Well, that's why it's artificial. It's not true. Yeah. So it says the Christians don't believe that God has a form.
Yeah, that's a oral opinion of AI. So
Oh,
the reader,
it's like AI grabbed from some websites. It didn't. So I grabbed the quote. It was Christians believe God transcends limitations of matter. This is a different
Yeah.
or AI overview. Christians believe God transcends the limitations of matter. He's not confined to a body at a particular place, and he's not restricted to living on another planet as some science fiction writers have imagined. We should remember that our knowledge of God is metaphorical and analogical, not literal.
This is nonsense. It's complete nonsense.
they might saying that you're putting infinite God into a small, limited form or something like that.
You know,
That's what they convince us.
nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Yeah, Krishna's form is infinite, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have a form. It just means that he can expand himself infinitely if he wants to, and he does that because he expands himself into Virat Rupa, which is an infinite form that encompasses everything. Right? At the same time, he can be baby Krishna. Yeah.
Yeah, they can't get the.
This is called mutually contradictory forms. Mutually contradictory forms. At the same time, he's the infinite form of the Virat Rupa, and at the same time, he's baby Krishna. Right? They can't. This is called. That's. I just said it. Mutually contradictory forms, or mutually contradictory. Yeah.
So below the website I used, there was a question called God. Does God have a body? I clicked on it, and the answer, and like this answer was, in Jewish tradition, there are two different camps of thought. One camp uses the passage of the Old Testament that refers to God's body as metaphorical. The
And-
other camp accepts that literally and them literally and believes that God either has a body or at the very least has a form that he can permit man to see. Since Maimonides' 13 Principles of Faith in the 12th century, Jewish thought has generally been that God is incorporeal.
It means it doesn't have a body.
Christian tradition has been virtually unanimous in viewing these passages in a metaphorical context.
So they believe what the Jews believe.
Any reference to God's body is considered a symbolic means of making God's actions more comprehensible to human beings living in a material world.
I didn't understand that. Read that again.
Any reference to God's body is considered a symbolic means of making God's actions more comprehensible to human beings living in a material world.
Yeah, in other words, they don't really accept that he has a body, but to help other people, let's say, get an idea of Jesus, they say he does, something like that. All right. Read that again. Read that again.
Any reference to God's body
Right, God's body. All right.
is a symbolic means of making God's actions more comprehensible to human beings living in the material world.
That means they don't believe he has a body, but for the less intelligent people, they act as if he has, they say that he has a body. Yeah.
One time, Maharaj on Mayavadi was telling, like, in our office.
Yeah.
Long time back, I had a colleague. He was Mayavadi.
Yeah.
So he was telling, like, yeah, you can worship Krishna. That's fine.
Yeah.
You can worship Mother Durga. That's fine.
Yeah.
Eventually, you will grow and you will start. You will leave the deity form and you will worship the formless. So he said,
Exactly.
you can choose any deity, either Krishna or
Yeah. It's Mayavad philosophy.
Mayavadi, they accept the word Vishwarupa,
Mhm.
and they also define Rupa means bounded.
Means what?
Bond. When you have form means is bond. In a
Bounded.
particular shape.
Bounded
Like
means
a-
limited.
You mean like a boundary?
Boundary, yes.
Yeah.
Then if you say Vishwarupa, means it's a boundaryless.
Oh, okay.
They accept
That means
but they
nothing.
accept
That means
for
nobody.
themselves.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of Exodus 33.23 and 30.
Exodus. Exodus is a book of the Bible. It's not Exodus, it's Exodus. Yes, go ahead.
Exodus 30.23 and 33.11 are most often cited as examples of God having a form, but they need to be viewed in their entire content. Although Exodus does record that Moses spoke to God face to face, Exodus 33.11, we also read a few verses later that no one can see God's face and live. 33.20. Therefore, it is clearly a metaphorical expression. God does say that he will let Moses see his back. 33.23. But this is in response to Moses asking to see God's glory. Exodus 23.18. This is understood as God revealing his essence in some ways from Moses, but revealing himself to some degree to Moses. In the passages from the prophets, where they claim to have seen God on his throne, and these descriptions than completely human life. These are understood as visions to help the prophet understand and not as true seeing of the divine essence.
Not as what? Not as.
Not a true seeing of the divine essence.
In other words, it's not real. Not a true seeing of the divine essence. Yeah.
That's yeah, this is all they say about it. It's the end of that section. Does God have a body?
Well, true seeing divine essence. So what is what does it mean? That's actually Mayavad statement. God has a form, and it's eternal, and it's something that you can actually see, you can actually touch. Like, for example, after Jesus was crucified and he died, then he resurrected, and there was one of his disciples called Thomas. Nowadays he's called Doubting Thomas. So Thomas, and this is after Jesus died, then he resurrected, and for 40 days he was walking around, you know, speaking with his disciples and so forth, after he had died. And then he resurrected from the dead. And then one of his disciples, named Thomas, and later on he was called Doubting Thomas, he came up to Jesus and said, I want to make sure you are Jesus who died on the cross. Because how did he die? It's not because he was nailed to the cross. It's because one of these soldiers of put a spear right into his abdomen like that, and apparently that's I don't know, but apparently that's what killed him. And so one of his disciples, one of Jesus' disciples named Thomas, who later on was referred to as Doubting Thomas, he came to Jesus and said, I want to put my finger into your wound to make sure you're actually Jesus who died on the cross. And Jesus said, okay. So he sticks his finger into where Jesus was pierced by that spear. And he saw that actually, it was a wound. It was a real wound. So then he was convinced that this was actually Jesus. It wasn't an imposter. But he became Doubting Thomas. So look that up, Doubting Thomas. I should have the Bible here. I don't have a Bible here. We should get a Bible. Look up some things they say there.
That's the term that refers to the Apostle Thomas from the New
Apostle.
Apostle Thomas
That means he was a apostle, means he was a devotee of Jesus.
Apostle Thomas from the New Testament of the Bible, who initially doubted Jesus' resurrection.
He doubted Jesus' resurrection, right? Is that what it says? Yeah. So then yeah, go ahead.
Jesus has appeared to the other apostles until he can see and feel Jesus' crucifixion wounds.
The wounds, yeah.
Thomas is honest about his doubts, telling the other disciples that he needs proof before he can believe. However, instead of walking away, Thomas stays with the disciples, and a week later, Jesus appears to them again. Jesus grants Thomas' request to see and touch his wounds, and Thomas later confesses his faith, saying, "My Lord and my God."
Right. He actually stuck his finger into his wounds. This is after Jesus died on the cross and then resurrects, and for 40 days he's walking around freaking everybody out, right? And this Thomas, doesn't believe, he has to have proof that it's actually Jesus. So he asks Jesus if he can stick his finger into his wound, and he sees that, he was pierced by the spear in his wounds and his abdomen, and he actually died, but now he's still alive. Okay, so we'll stop right there and continue tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We got to get a Bible. We need a Bible. Which Bible? That's, well, I see the most bona fide Bible is the Catholic Bible. What's the name of it? We should look up the Catholic version of the Bible. There are many Bibles. You see how everything gets confusing. There are many Bibles.
You will get confused.
Yeah.
It becomes confusing when there are multiple versions of same thing.
Yeah. Well, we have it in ISKCON also, in Ritviks.
Yes, Ritviks, yes. The regular visitors, they may or may not be aware about the certain difference because everything else looks like same books. Same,
You mean the Ritviks and us? Yeah. Well, yeah, the Ritviks use the same books.
yeah. I mean, if the regular visitor goes to Ritvik temple versus our temples, they may not be able to figure out they are into the Ritvik.
The Ritviks are worshiping Prabhupada and Krishna. You have to give him some credit.
Yes. One day in India, I was talking to someone, and that person introduced himself. I'm from Ritvik. When I told him I'm following Krishna consciousness, so then he started the conversation like this. I'm from the. I said that's fine.
I call them nitpicks. Ritvik, nitpick.
It's a Catholic Bible.
St. James version, St. James Bible. Look that up. St. James Bible. King James, yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay, we'll end the session, Maharaj.
Yeah. Here we go.